the night before Leil B'dikas Chometz was here, and it's raining, and it's Voldik Mesimus Nefesh to come out for a Shia, but the Chavivus of Yen Diema of Sipur Mitzrayim is in every Yid's heart, burning a fire. So we'll just say a few ha'oros on the Yen Diema, which is the Haggadah Shel Pesach. You know, we begin the Haggadah Shel Pesach, the Seder of Magid, which is Sipur Mitzrayim, with Holach Ma'anya. Holach Ma'anya da Chola Vasana Ba'arad Mitzrayim. Kol Dich Bin Yesef Yecha. So the Kasha, the Shaila, the question that all the boys and girls, everyone comes home from yeshiva, and they ask, it's not true. Why do we eat matzah? We eat matzah al shum shelo hisbik b'tzeikom lahachmitz ad shenigla lehem melech malchei amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because when they left Mitzrayim, so the matzah, the dough didn't have a chance to rise. So it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah that they ate matzah in Mitzrayim. So which holach ma'anya, the achola avasana ba'arad Mitzrayim? It's not true. So we're beginning the Haggadah with a misstatement. It didn't begin in Mitzrayim. We didn't eat matzah in Mitzrayim. So some people want to say over that the Ibn Ezra says that he saw that prisoners are all over the world internationally given to eat matzah because it slows down their metabolism. So it's better for the people who are for the oppressors. So they put them in. But that's at best less expensive. That's all maybe a remez, but it's not mafurish in the Torah. So how would we begin the Haggadah with something that's not mafurish? And Avram Avinu gave them matzah because of Al Shem Ha'asid seeing the future that they would give out, that they would eat matzah when they're leaving Mitzrayim. And also, there's another interesting note. The Rambam in his Seder Haggadah brings down that this Holach Ma'anya was added as an addendum to the Haggadah Bimei Hagolus. At the time they ate the Korban Pesach when it was in Gula, they didn't say Holach Ma'anya. The Rambam says Holach Ma'anya was added Bimei Hagolus, which seems to be clear because at the end of the Holach Ma'anya we say Hashata Hochel L'Shon Haba B'Arad Yisrael Hashata Avdi L'Shon Haba B'nei Chayren. So it seems to be connected to the Golus. So if it's such an important statement, Holach Ma'anya, the Achol Avasana Ba'arad Mitzrayim, why was that set aside only for the Mea Golus? I'll just add a third note that I heard from my Rebbe, Your Honor of David Soloveitchik Zatzal, that he said the Rambam used to pour the second cup before Holach Ma'anya, and he would announce Magid before Holach Ma'anya. We pour the second cup after Holach Ma'anya. It means the Rambam understood it's part of Magid, Sipur Mitzrayim. What does this Holach Ma'anya have to do? But our main question is, they didn't eat it in Mitzrayim. If they didn't eat it in Mitzrayim, why would we make such a statement? Well, there's one place in the Torah where it says they ate matzah in Mitzrayim. You know where that is? When they ate the Korban Pesach before they left Mitzrayim, the night prior to leaving, the Torah says they shechted a Korban Pesach, and then what happened? Al matzah yisum roirem, u'matzah yisam roirem yechlu. They ate the Korban Pesach with matzah and roirem. So it seems clear in the Torah they did eat matzah in Mitzrayim. You know when they ate matzah in Mitzrayim? One singular time. You know when that time was? The time was in Eretz Mitzrayim, the night of the Korban Pesach. So that seems what the Baal Haggadah is saying. Holach Ma'anya, this is the bread, the poor bread that we ate in Mitzrayim. In Mitzrayim? That's true, they ate it in Mitzrayim. But there were hundreds of years in Mitzrayim, and that's the important bread that we have to note when we begin the Haggadah. So the answer is they ate it. And we're noting that matzah that they ate the night before they left. So why is it so important to point out that bread of Holachmanya, the Achol Avasana, Barad Mitzrayim, and it has to do with Bimei Agolos. So I think the answer is this way. The Mishnah tells us in Arvei Psachim, Afilu ani shebi Yisrael lo yoichal ad sheyesif. Even someone who's a very downtrodden person has to drink the Dalit Kaises and lim be'eseba. What's the chiddush? An ani has to put on tefillin. An ani has to take a lulav. There's no Mishnah. Afilu ani shebi Yisrael has to take a lulav. The Rishonim say, you know what the chiddush is? What's the motto and the bottom line of the whole mitzvah of Pesach at night by the Seder? Derech Cherus. Instead of feeling like an Eved, you have to feel a certain amount of liberty, of Cherus. The Mishnah is telling us an Ani could say to himself, as many times as I'll lean, as many cups of wine that I'll drink, I'm still an Ani. And I'm still Nishkin ben Cheren. Zog the Mishnah, Afilu Ani Shebi Yisrael. Lo Yochel Ad Sheyesef. Parenthetically, this Vasema says, it's not only going on an Ani beguf, it's an Ani bedas. Many times a person thinks, I'm not up to Sipitzis Mitzrayim. I'm not up to the game. Afilu Ani Shebi Yisrael Lo Yochel Ad Sheyesef. So what's the teretz? But the person's saying, good, I'm an Ani. So how can I sit be'eseba and do it b'derech cherus? It was many years ago. I went to Crown Heights. I don't know if anybody here eats Raskin's herring. In Raskin's herring, there's a picture on the cover of the Raskin's herring. It was an old Yid. I went to buy fish there once, 2 days, must be 8-9 years ago, in Crown Heights. And I was in the store, so he saw I'm buying fish. He said, it's covered yontiv. So I said, yeah, with Afshbir, it's not easy. I said to him in Yiddish, it's not easy. He was behind the counter, and I said, it's not easy to feel derech cherus. It's not so easy. I'm buying fish. So shpir derech cherus. So he said to me in Yiddish that time, he said, I was in Siberia, and we were under pressure, and I was with Zeya Gute Yidden, Chassidische Yidden. Und man gespürt cherus. He told me, we felt the cherus. That means a Yid has a koyach to be able to feel cherus in the hardest matzavim, the hardest situations. You know why? When Klal Yisrael was in Mitzrayim the night before they left, so they were making a sleeper Yitzias Mitzrayim, and they were eating matzah with the Karban Pesach. Did they leave Mitzrayim yet? No. They were still in the confines, in the borders of Mitzrayim. But what did they do? They said, Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, they brought a Karban Pesach. You know why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told them, tomorrow we're leaving. Since HaKadosh Baruch Hu told them, tomorrow we're leaving, they already, in their minds, were B'nai Chayrin. You're not a Ben Chayrin where your guf is. You're a Ben Chayrin where your mind is. If your mind is in the right place, it doesn't make a difference where you are physically. You could be a Ben Chayrin. A person is in prison and he's getting out the next day. And there's another person outside who's going into prison the next day. Who's the Ben Chayrin? The person outside or the person inside? From a very plain look, the person inside is not a Ben Chayrin, the person outside is a Ben Chayrin. If someone thinks a little deeper, he understands it's not true. The person inside is leaving. He's already a Ben Chayrin, he's in the mindset of a Ben Chayrin. The person outside, this is bitter, he's going in. Holach ma'anya. When we start off to say the Bimei Agolos, we're feeling very downtrodden. We're feeling very under pressure. There's such a tumult in the Welt, and it's hard to feel as if you're a Ben Chayrin. You know what the answer is? Holach ma'anya da'achol avasana ba'avad Mitzrayim. They ate this matzah in Eretz Mitzrayim because they were maminim and balei betochen. They knew that they were leaving because HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised them. That's why they were B'nai Chayrin. Hashata hocha. Lishona haba b'Eretz Yisrael. only a hope about where we'll be next year, because a Yid is always hoping to the future. He's already a Ben Chayrin today, not only tomorrow. Hashato Avdei, L'shon Haba B'nei Chayrin, so therefore we are B'nei Chayrin. That's why we begin the Haggadah with the whole Achmanya, to put our minds straight. It's an Avodah Shebelev, it's an Avodah Shebemoyach. Of course, with Afam Kosher Matzim, with good wine, and the right Morar, and all the trimmings of what we need for the Seder, and all the halachas, of course. But with Afarbatin of the Kop, with Afarbatin of the Hashkofe, the way we see life. If we see life in that way, then we can be that way. Be'emes is, there's a pasuk in the Torah. Where do we all learn out? V'igadato levincha. There's a big tumult. I don't know the minig in many of your places, but by us, Pesach at night, everyone makes Kiddush. Kadesh, everyone makes their own Kiddush. Not only that, by us we don't do it that way, but I saw it brought them in Ogech Sam Sefer. Even the women hold the cup when they say the Haggadah, and they say quietly along the Kiddush. Shabbos, we don't do that. Why, when it comes to Kadesh of the Haggadah, do we do it that way? You have to drink it. I agree, they got to drink it. Why do I have to say it? Kiddush, they're also mechuyev in Kiddush. But they do it Shemei HaKohina. So I want to tell you like this. There's also another thing. We daven late the night of Pesach, the first night of Pesach. Because we want to make sure that the mitzvahs of Pesach are done. The Badai Laila, it's a Tosis in Masech Pesachim, Daf Tzadik Tesam at Beis. That, because it's hookish to the Korban Pesach, and when Korban Pesach says Laila, so you have to make sure to do it early. You have to do it late when it's Badai Laila. Okay, I hear to do the mitzvahs Hayoim, Siprit Tzis Mitzrayim, Achilas Matzah. I hear it. But what about Kiddush? Why do we have to say Kiddush before? So maybe the answer is because Kiddush is one of the Dalet Kaises. So maybe we could figure it out. We do the Kiddush first, make the Kiddush before, longer Kiddush, and then you can drink the Kais when it's Vadei Laila. Why are we makbid only the Vadei, that it should be Vadei Laila? But why do we say out? So I want to tell you, where do we know you have to do Siprit Tzis Mitzrayim? V'igadato levincha. Years ago, I was a driver, took myself and my family on this road from Yerushalayim. I hired him to drive us to Tzfas. On the way to Tzfas, he tells me, I didn't know Ivrit that well. He tells me, I have makom mitzuyan for you and your family to go to. I said, okay. He said, Chavad hataninim. Chavad hataninim. Taninim, like dragons or whales. I didn't know what he meant. And Chavad, I didn't know what he meant. I said, he sounded so exuberant about it. I said, okay. Goes off the road. He takes us to a road. I pull up in a place, and it says, Chavat Taninim, and then it said in English over there, it was a small little place, and it said, crocodile experience. Taninim is crocodile, somehow they've written. And that was a place, they literally made crocodile and alligator pocketbooks and leather, and then they were harvesting them. They were making the things. It was an unbelievable place, and I went, and my little kids were there. They took out little alligators. They were holding them. It was an unbelievable thing. I never saw such a place before. I never saw it after. But then I came out to a Gvaldik Chiddush. Ma zeh chavat. Chavat is what they say in Ivrit, chavaya. You know what a chavaya is? An experience. Okay. So I learned that from over there, word. Chavaya means experience. A few years later, I was doing Shnayim Mikra V'Echatagim. In Parshas Bo, it says, V'higadato levincha bayoyim ahu leimar. You know what the Targum says? I would have thought V'higadato, saper, say it over, lahagid, words like that. The Targum says, V'higadato v'chavei. I was looking at the Targum. What's the Targum? V'chavei. V'chavei. You know what the Targum's telling me? V'higadato levincha is not a mitzvah about talking. And it's not a mitzvah about saying. It's a mitzvah about creating a chavaya. It's a mitzvah about creating an experience. The way you create the experience is through saying. The way you create the experience is eating the matzah. The way you create the experience is drinking the dalit cases. So it comes out that the whole vihigarata is not a mitzvah shebedibur. The dibur is eichet himse, how to create the chavaya. Das steht in Targum. Vihigarata is v'chavei. Im kein. When do you say Shemei HaKoina? Shemei HaKoina is on a mitzvah shebedibur. When you have to say Kiddush, if I say it and you hear it, it's like you said it. But if the mitzvah of the Dibur is to create an experience, and it's your job to be part of the experience, every single person there. So there's no Shemei HaKoina. So everyone has to say the Haggadah. And if you say the Haggadah, so then you become part of the experience. You join the experience. And Mamela, that's the Vigada Tolavincha. That's why Kadesh is part of the Sipo Yitzias Mitzrayim. And if it's part of the Sipo Yitzias Mitzrayim, so the halacha of Sipo Yitzias Mitzrayim, so therefore Shemei HaKohen doesn't help. Maybe that's the Minig Yisrael that we all have to do we all have to do it, which really answers a Gavaldika question. Friday night, if someone makes Kiddush, there's a halacha of Kiddush b'makom Suda. Well, let's say someone makes Kiddush Friday night, and then he goes out for a walk, or he sits at the table, and he talks and learning. He has children, and Eidim, Talmidei Chachamim, and he mamish talks and learning for an hour. And then he goes to wash. He's not Yetzer Kiddush. It's not Kiddush b'makom Suda. Kiddush b'makom Suda, I don't know what the shear is. Abba shear. And the shear has to be a certain amount. If the shear has to be a certain amount, what's the Kiddush Makom Suda? So it's not Kiddush Makom Suda. So what do? We make Kiddush, we wash for Karpas, Yachatz, and then for 2-3 hours, whatever people do, they make the Magid. And then we eat the matzah 2 hours after Kiddush. Maybe even longer, 3 hours after Kiddush. Vosig Hashem et Kiddush Makom Suda. Und der Emes ist, I almost chalished. Tosfos in Masechta Pesachim Daf Kuf Gimel Amud Beis says you make a bracha achroina ala gefen after you make Kiddush. Oh, nobody by us does that. Tosfos says because there's a hefsek. I mean, by the time I get to eating the matzah and benching, that's too long. So it's not connected. Tosfos' shita was to make an ala gefen. There was someone in my shul who collects haggadahs. He collects antiques. He brought me a catalog with some haggadahs. I said, "I'm giving you a job. Find a haggadah that has the ala gefen after benching. That haggadah I'll buy. Because that would be a shittas atesves. I'm looking for such a haggadah. That'll be a yikar mitzias. So far he didn't find it for me. But I said, that should be haggadah. But Tais says a good kasha. So I was saying, Kiddush Makom Suda. It's not Kiddush Makom Suda. How are we doing it?
Wouldn't that be 5 kos? That'd be an extra kos.
No extra kos. You drink 1 kos, you make a bracha achroina, ala gefen, al priya gefen, and then an hour or 2 later you get up to the matzah and you make on the matzah. You don't take another kos. Oh, 1 kos. It's 4 kos. Well, I'm asking, where's the Kiddush Makom Suda?
The first cup you're reading Kiddush on it.
Yes,
There's
we make
such a
Kiddush.
break that it's not.
There's such a break. If you would do that Friday night, you would make Kiddush, and then you would take an hour. We'd have a shir. Rav Eisenberg will give a shir, and he'll have it. We would have a shir. It would be a very nice shir, but it wouldn't be Kiddush Makom Suda. So yeah, what?
Tosfos, you're allowed to make Kiddush on that, and then l'chachila make a.
Places says that's the way it was set up.
But
They would do it. They would make an ala gefen. What?
That's big Makom Suda.
Right. That's a gewaltige question. That's what I'm asking. Where's the Kiddush Makom Suda? The teretz is, it's all part of the Suda. It's a hefsek for benching. For benching, it's a hefsek. You have to make a rachayim. But is it a hefsek? I'm in the middle of setting up the Suda. Because the whole Agoda and eating of the matzah are one thing. It's not two separate components. It's all part of it. That's why it would be Kiddush Makam Suda, and that's why there would be a halacha that it wouldn't be a problem of this thing. We'll just go through the Agoda. Omar, what is the Haggadah? It says Maaseh. It was a Maaseh that they were sitting together, the Talmidei Chachamim, and they were sitting together and they were being Mesapa b'Yitzias Mitzrayim Kol Oisei Alayla. Who was sitting there? Bakiva, Vechulu, Reb Elazar ben Azariah. They were all together until they came in. The Talmidim, Ad Shebo Talmideim, V'amru Lahem, Rabbi Seinu, Higia Azman, Kriya Shema Shel Shachris. So now it's time for Kriya Shema Shel Shachris. So now L'cheire, you have to stop. So all the children come home and they ask, Higia Azman Kriya Shema Shel Shachris. So how come the Rabbeim didn't see it? Only the Talmidim saw it. So they say no, they were like in a cave. Or others say there was such an oyer in the room from the oyer kedusha that they couldn't see the difference between night and day. What's Pashim Pshat? Ad Shebo Talmidei. And also, it's not so Pashim. A Talmud's allowed to tell his Rebbe. Says the Gemara says, I think it's an Erevin. The Gemara says when a Talmud has to tell his Rebbe, he has to be meramis to him. He can't just say you're doing something wrong. Bo Talmidei. V'amro. Rabbi Seinu. Higi is ma kriyish Rosh Hashanah. That's right. In the face. How were they able to do that? How were they able to give such a dig into the Rabbeim? And why didn't the Rabbeim know it? But I also have another kasha. The machlek is in a Mishnah at the end of the first parak of Masechta Brachos, and we just had it in the Daf Hayemi. That is a big machlek. Is until when could you eat the Korban Pesach? The Chachamim hold you can eat the Korban Pesach till the morning, like all Korbanos. And the Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah holds you're only allowed to eat the Korban Pesach until Chatzos. And we know you only do Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim on the matzah, which is hookish to the Korban Pesach. And Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah holds you're only allowed to eat matzah until Chatzos. And parenthetically, I have to tell everybody, some people are very nervous and they're not makbid. Some people are nervous about, some people are not. About eating the afikoimon after chatzos, there's eitzes. That's the afikoimon. But eating the matzah of moitzi matzah before chatzos is a dina de gemara. According to Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, you must eat the matzah before chatzos. If you don't paskin like Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, you can eat it till the morning. But if you want to be machmer on a deraisa, being the matzah, you should definitely try at least to eat the matzah before chatzos. Forget about the afikoimon, the matzah. But upon Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah holds only till Chatzos. If he holds matzahs till Chatzos, a Korban Pesach, till when is Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim? Till Chatzos. Who was sitting over there? Rabbi Akiva and Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. And they were being Mesapa b'Yitzias Mitzrayim, Kol Oisei Alayla, Ad Sheyagia Talmideim, V'amru Lahem, Higia Zman Kriya Shema Shel Shachris. Why did that happen? Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah should have stopped 6 hours before, because it was already this man of Kriya Shema Shel Shachris. If it was this man of Kriya Shema Shel Shachris, that's when he should have stopped. Chatzos. He should have stopped at Chatzos. How did he keep on going? At least Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah should have left. So there's many terutzim. Was? Oh, so maybe that we'll see that in a second. If there's a din of that din. But I'm thinking, but Bechlal, someone saw, I saw some in the Sefer Birchas Avraham, he says that maybe there's an arichus. Kol amar b'lasapa b'yitzias Mitzrayim, you could be Meirich your Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim even past the Zman. That means if you started in the Zman, you make it longer, so it's like a hiddur in the Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. Happens to be that the Rambam changes the Loshen. He doesn't say Kol hamar b'lasapa b'yitzias Mitzrayim. The Rambam's nusach in his agor is called Hamayrich. He changed it from Marbe to Mayrich. Maybe the Rambam's taken from this. You Mayrich, you make it longer, you stretch it out. Maybe that would be the Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. But I thought maybe there's another text, the Pashta text. How were they being marble Sapitzis Mitzrayim? They were just schmoozing around, and they were being marble Sapitzis Mitzrayim by talking and learning, and the Talmidim were hearing them. So they went. Of course, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah stayed. Okay, he held you not Makai Mitzvah Sapitzis Mitzrayim after Chatzos. If they were talking and learning, so why should he leave? I mean, what is he going to make a statement? He's leaving. His own sheet is the Sibit time's over. But the ones who held like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah figured they'll stay. Well, how do they stay? Because at least they'll talk and learning. So there's a halacha in Hilchas Talmud Torah. All mitzvahs are oisik b'mitzvah, patam min mitzvah. If you're in the middle of a mitzvah, you don't have to stop. You're allowed to continue a mitzvah. Even if the other mitzvah is bigger. If you're in the middle of a mitzvah, oisik mitzvah, patam mitzvah. The exception to that rule is Talmud Torah. If you're in the middle of Talmud Torah, you have to drop Talmud Torah. Even though Talmud Torah connected kulam. But learning falls to the wayside and you have to do other mitzvahs. What the reason is, we'll leave it aside. There's reasons for that. That if you learning has to fall aside and you do the mitzvah to do the other mitzvah. It's a gewaldige shtickle. The Bir HaGra says in Hilchas Tzedakah, and it was a tshuva in Reb Moshe printed in the Amad Torah many years ago. You know, people have to give meiser from their money to give tzedakah. Reb Moshe paskind that you have to give meiser from your time. If you can help somebody else with learning, even though at that time you could learn better for yourself, you have to give away a meiser of your learning in order to help somebody else out with your learning. The Bir HaGra says, and it'll be an unbelievable thing, when you're learning yourself, you makayim mitzvahs Talmud Torah. When you're learning with somebody who's gaining from you, you're not only makayim Talmud Torah, you're makayim mitzvahs tzedakah. Just like you give him money, you're helping him with the greatest thing, you're helping him learn. So the goyim, when you learn with somebody else who needs your help, that's Talmud Torah, like it's Mavuy, like from that Ramesh. What would be the nafkamina? If you're learning yourself and a mitzvah comes up, you have to leave. Because there's no oisik mitzvah but a mitzvah. Torah falls by the side and you have to leave. But if you're learning with somebody who you're helping with his learning and a mitzvah presents himself, what would you do? You wouldn't leave. So Chazai. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah and the other Rabbeim there held at 12 o'clock there was no more mitzvah of Sipitzis Mitzrayim. So what did it transition to? To a mitzvah of Talmud Torah. If it was Talmud Torah, but who was listening? The Talmidim were all around listening. So it was a mitzvah of Talmud Torah, and it was a mitzvah of tzedakah. Who's makayim the mitzvah of tzedakah? The teacher or the person getting? Only the teacher. The person getting, when you're learning with him, he's only makayim mitzvahs Talmud Torah. So the Talmidim came back in. There wasn't a chutzpah. The Talmidim said, the Rabbeim thought, Talmidim are listening on the bleachers. So if they're listening on the bleachers, they don't have to stop for Kriya Shema. Why don't they have to stop for Kriya Shema? Because they're doing mitzvah tzedakah. Oisik b'mitzvah is poter min mitzvah. So what do? They say, come to the Talmidim and say, okay, it's true. Ad shebo Talmidim v'amalo. I'm sorry, we're leaving. Higiyas man Kriya Shema shel Shachris. We don't have the heter of Oisik b'mitzvah poter min mitzvah. Because we're not being makayim mitzvah tzedakah. So what are we makayim Talmud Torah? So if we leave, so mamela you have to leave. So therefore, that was the halacha. That was what they told him. So it wasn't a thing of chutzpah. They were telling him the facts. We're leaving, so mamela you have to leave. So the eitzah could have been, they could have left one by one and then come back. And then the rabbi would have, they all said, they're leaving. Higiyu Talmideim, v'amru lahem, higiyas man, kriyish mashal shah. It's just a battle. But then the next thing.
Isn't there a Gemara that says that the Rebbe, I think, was giving a shir or something that he...
The Gemara Yandaf, days on the days. The Gemara says, so he was yaitz just by saying Shema Yisrael, the first pasuk. So they could have just said the first pasuk, Maybe they could have, but they didn't even want to stop for that. I hear what you're saying.
I'm asking why
The Rabbeim.
why did Rabbi have to do that? If he was getting shear.
Oh, that's very good. It's Shiloh, very stark. Why did he even have to say that? Because maybe the way Rebbe did it, it was Efshel L'Kaim Shneim. If you can do both together, then you don't have the P'tur of Isaac Mitzvah. So if he could have said the Shir, that's maybe why Rebbe was Machadish that, so he can do both together. If the din would be Talmud Torah, he has to stop, so why did he have to do that? But yeah, it's a very good
So the
sushta.
Rabban didn't eat matzah that year?
They did. They ate matzah before. Now they were up to the later. They were marbe after the matzah. It has to be they were marbe after the matzah, and that's why there was that din. So then I have the next piece in the Haggadah. Amar Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. What time do we have? Oh, Amar Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. Harei ani keven shivim shana v'loi zachisi sheteomer yitzias Mitzrayim b'leilos ad shedash v'zeh. So like that, the man said, there's no such din. This Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah was not talking about Sipi Yitzias Mitzrayim. Sipi Yitzias Mitzrayim is when? Pesach at night. What is this din that he was talking about? Schiris Yisrael. When we daven Ma'ariv, we say in Vayomer, Asher Yitzetzi Eschem Eretz Mitzrayim. There's a chiyuv for every night to make Schiris Yisrael. That's what Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah was talking about. Not the really doesn't belong in the Haggadah. It's a good question why it's in the Haggadah. Maybe like you were saying, maybe that's what they were continuing, only doing Schiris Mitzrayim. But it's only Schiris Mitzrayim. But I never understood this Mishnah. I'm this kind of chassid. I hold you're supposed to wear your gartel this way. There's another chassid holds you're supposed to wear a gartel this way. There's one chassid who wears a shtreimel, there's one chassid who wears a spodik, and there's one chassid who wears a down hat. There's one litvak who wears a down hat. So that's what you do. Everybody has their way of life. Was kommt Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah? Lo zachisi. They argued on him. They say, you don't say Yitzias Mitzrayim b'leilos. You only say Yitzias Mitzrayim b'yom. Come to Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. So Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, Lo zachisi. I wasn't zoiche that they should say Yitzias Mitzrayim. They hold you don't say it at night. You hold you do say it at night. You hold you do say it at night. I hold you don't say it at night. We can still be friends. What's Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah saying? Lo zachisi. Ich hab nicht solche gewähnt that they hold like me. What was this, a personal fight? That he holds, darf solche sein, that they should hold like him? And Bechlal, hab ich am Mordecai Kasha. Then Ben Zaymer came. And Ben Zaymer made a whole drasha. Laman tiskas yem seis gewer tsam kol yemei chayecha. Yemei chayecha hayomim, kol yemei chayecha haleilos. The other one argued and said, Yemei chayecha elamazeh, kol yemei chayecha leilamabah. Limoisa Mashiach. So he says, oh, Ben Zaymer came. Ben Zaymer held like me. Hold the frame. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, did you have a drasha like Ben Zaymer? If you had a drasha, you should have said it. It's mashma Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah never expressed the drasha. Amar Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, Harei ani kiven shivim shana, v'lo zachisi shadayam yitzis mitzrayim b'leilos ad shedarsha Ben Zaymer. That means Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah wasn't Dirish. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah wasn't Dirish. So how did he expect? What did he hold? So he needed Ben Zaymer to come. So he should have had the drosha. Elamai, he didn't have the drosha. If he didn't have the drosha, how did he know it? How did Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah know it? How do you read the Haggadah? Ad shedarsha Ben Zaymer. Oh, as it the kasha is, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, did he know you're supposed to say it b'leilos? Obviously he knew it. Because he was agitated. He wanted everybody to say b'leilos. Then he says, oh, afterwards Ben Zaymer came and he learned it from a pasuk. Kol yemei chayecha yomim, kol yemei chayecha haleilos. Oh, so happy. Now everybody's going to listen to Ben Zaymer. Did Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah have to say that way of learning the pasuk? No. If he didn't have that way of learning the pasuk, so then how did he expect anybody to listen to him? What did he know? So it's like a gewaltige pshat in the Marshoah. It's like the Marshoah doesn't ask this, but he says, doesn't ask the kashas we ask, but he says this. Very similar to what we said in the beginning of this year. When was the main Yitzias Mitzrayim? B'yoyim or b'laylo? Well, they left 12 o'clock in the afternoon, the day of Pesach. The Maharsha explains, and he says, no. That was already a pre-conclusion, we're going to know that later. You know when they left Mitzrayim? The night of the Korban Pesach and of the Makas B'chayrim. When they left Mitzrayim, that's when they left. When they stood up to the Mitzrayim and were able to be Makriv the Korban Pesach and not be intimidated and scared of the Mitzrayim. That was the Geula. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah said, the natural Geula was not in the day. Geulas Mitzrayim took place at night. If Geulas Mitzrayim took place at night, even without a pasuk, it was at night. So therefore Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah explained, Lo Zachisi, nobody understood that. They saw it physically. When you leave Mitzrayim, that's when you left. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, that agitated him. That's not the essence of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yetzias Mitzrayim is when you felt like you're leaving Mitzrayim. When you are a Ben Chayrin. When you feel it in your guf and neshama that you are. Then you're a Ben Chayrin. He said, Lo Zachisi, I didn't need the pasuk. Ben Zema needed the pasuk. That's why Ben Zema came with the pasuk. Then people will be masking. Maybe that's why it's merumas. Harei ani keben shivim shana. Everybody knows what Chazal tell us. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah was 17 years old, and he thought that's why they don't want to listen to him. And he woke up in the morning and had a big white beard. Oh, now they're going to listen to him. What do you think? It was a joke? They didn't know it was him. They didn't know it was that. What was the big white beard that they were going to get? They would look at him differently, impressed by that beard. Now how the Teretz is, he was saying, Harei ani keben shivim shana, exactly. I was that before. What are you looking at, Chatzonius? You don't look at the outer garb of a person. You look at what's deep inside his heart. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, and that's why it's Balayla, not B'yayim. The reason it's Balayla, not B'yayim, is because of that halacha. The halacha of Harei ani keben shivim shana, and that was the Lo Zachisi Shatayam Yitzias Mitzrayim. Just say one more short ha'ara, and then I'm going to say a ha'ara or two on the halachas of Erev Pesach Shechal B'Shabbos. We say the four bonim, Arba bonim Devratem. Echad Chacham, Echad Rasha, Echad Tam, Echad Ein Yidei Elisha. Just happens to be, I'll tell you as an aside, they say over a Levi Yitzchak, Ba'aditcha there, everyone does the Seder Shal Pesach at home. Other things we do in shul. That's why there's such a tremendous amount of Haggadahs and different Perushim, because people have to master it themselves. They take it home. Other things in shul, the Rov tut, the Rebbe tut. Here, a person goes home and it's his responsibility to do the Haggadah. So it has an exact Seder how to do the Haggadah. One time Reb Levi Yitzchak said, listen, I have to see how Yidden do the Haggadah. I'm the Rov in town. And he said, so he took one of his shamas with him, and he went around and he went to some Pashut Yidden, simple Yidden's house, and he stood by the window. When he got to the window of one of the Yidden's house, he said, he heard the Yid going, he was up to the Dalet Bonim, and he heard a Yid going, Echad Chacham. Then when he got to the Rosh, he said, Echad Rasha. He was saying the Echad, like he says by the Echad by Shema. So the shamus who was with Reb Levi Yitzchak, he was laughing. He couldn't control himself. He was on the floor. Meanwhile, he looked on the side. Reb Levi Yitzchak was mamish in Himmel. He was kriechen in him. He was crawling up to the Shamayim from this. That's what this Yid was saying. You know what he meant to say? Echad Chacham, Echad Rasha, Echad Tam, Echad Ein Elishol is the Shem Hashem. Every single Yid was made by the Eibishter. The Chacham, the Rasha, the Tam, the Elishol. Everybody is part of it. Everybody has the Shem Hashem. Everybody is from the Yechidas, from the Eibishter. And therefore he has to be taken out. It happens to be, come from my grandfather's Vorka Chassid. Yitzchak Vorka said the Haggadah, And it said by the Rasha, Ilu Hoya Sham, Loi Hoya Nigol. That sounds like a very, very strict. You say that's the way to say chinuch to a Rosh. You say, if you were there, you wouldn't have gotten out from Mitzrayim. That was something that must have grated on the Yitzchak Vorka. Yitzchak Vorka was the Oy of Yisrael. He was a person who saw the good. He was Amshon of Vorka, like the people who see the good in everybody. So how is he going to read the Haggadah that the Haggadah says, Elohai Shem Lo Nigol? So the Vorka Rebbe said, you know what you told the Rasha? Elohai Yesham. If you were in Mitzrayim, maybe you wouldn't have gotten out. That was before Matan Torah. Today, everybody gets out. No Jew is left behind. Elohai Yesham Lahai Nigol. Today, everybody's niggle. There's no such thing. Everybody has a spark in his heart, in the Yiddish heart that cannot be extinguished as hard as a person tries, or as hard as other people try. It just can't happen. So it says, Elohai Yesham Lahai Nigol. So that's the Echad Chacham Echad Rosh. So what do we say after the Echad Eni Dei Elisha? The Eni Dei Elisha. Any additional Ma'al. So he doesn't say anything. So we say to him back, and so what's the next line? So we all look at Talmud Leima Bayaymahu. Ibayaymahu Yachol Mi Baydiyim. Talmud Leima B'Shoshi Yishmatzim. In all Haggadahs, mamish universally, that's a new paragraph. Yachol Mi Chaydish. If you look in the Rambam's Haggadah, it's not a new paragraph. It's part of the Eni Dei Elishol. We're darshaning the pasuk of the Eni Dei Elishol, and we say Yachol Meirish Chaydish. What does it have to do with the Eni Dei Elishol? You know what? We think the Eni Dei Elishol, he's learning disabled. He needs special education. So we say to the Baal, God that says, oh, you telling me about an Eni Dei Elishol? Yachol Meirish Chaydish. Maybe for him, you have to start the Seder from Rosh Chodeshnis. And then, like this, you'll really get a head start, a jump start. And you'll be able to say the Haggadah to him. So I say, no, Talmud Leimo. V'yigada to levincha bayeimahu. So you can't start Rosh Chodeshnis. Oh, the person tries again. The educator. He says, bayeimahu. Yachol mi ba'idiyah. So let me start Erev Pesach. We'll bring him to yeshiva. We'll bring all the special effects, and we'll tell him, mi ba'id yaim. Talmud Leimo! B'Shoshi yesh matzah mar machma. He's with everybody at the table, Seder Shel Pesach. That's when you do with the Eni Dei Elisha. You know what the Baal HaGadah is telling us? Letzich nishdain, don't talk yourself into it. It's not about the Haggadah. It's not about the bells and whistles. It's about the siyata d'ishmaya and the achrayis that's given to a person that Pesach at night, b'shoshi yesh matzah mar menachem lefanecha, there's an oyer. Of course you have to prepare, you have to make hishtadlus. But don't forget, the main factor is this connection with the Eibishter. And if people are connected with the Eibishter, that's what it is. I just thought, Chayiv Adam Leroy says Atzmai Ki'ilu Hu Yatsa Mitzrayim. So I said over in the shul, why does it say the word Adam? Chayiv Leroy says Atzmai. Why does the Baal HaGadah, it's a Mishnah Masechta Pesachim, say the word Adam? Chayiv Adam Leroy says Atzmai. He said because the Maral tells us everything in the world is really finite, has a certain amount. An orange is an orange. Whatever you do to it, you squeeze it, it's orange juice. You let it spoil, it's spoiled orange. At best, it's an orange. A lamb is a lamb, and a rose is a rose, is a rose, is a rose. That's all what it is. It can't become more. It's like the Maral, there's one thing in the world that really does become more. Adama. Earth has potential. Because earth, it depends what a person does with it. You could plant wheat, you could plant roses, you could plant trees. Some people know how to plant many things. The more a person utilizes it and takes out the nutrients of the earth, That's why an Adam is sometimes called an Adam, not an Ish. An Ish could be finite. That's it. He's an Ish. Mr. So-and-so. He's Mr. An Adam is Adama. He has endless potential. You can't buttonhole yourself and say, I'm this. I took an IQ test. I can't be more. The guy told me when I took the IQ test, that's what I can be, and that's missing the point. A person has tremendous amount of potential, and from that potential could come out gewaltige koiches, tremendous amounts. That's when a person's called an Adam. Chayiv Adam Leroy says Atzmai Kilu Hu Yatzim Mitzrayim. When you're beginning the Seder from Pesach, you have to see yourself as an Adam. You have a tremendous amount of potential, and the potential that you have has to be given over to the people around you, and it's your responsibility. And you have to be part of this Vigalat Levincha, this Chavei, and that's the Sipri Tzis Mitzrayim. It's a privilege. It's an achrai, it's a responsibility and a privilege that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us, and that's the limud that we can take out from it. This year is Erev Pesach Shechal B'Shabbos. When it's Erev Pesach Shechal B'Shabbos, it creates certain issues. First of all, anybody who's a B'chayr, tomorrow is the Tainus B'chayr, because we can't fast on Shabbos, and we don't like to fast on Friday, except Asar B'Teves. So therefore, we should fast on Thursday. Therefore, we make the Siyum B'chayrim on Thursday. However, there are more paskins in Hilchas Tainus Esther before Purim. When Purim comes out on Sunday, so we also fast Tainus Esther on Thursday. The Ramah says if you had a bris on Thursday, you don't fast on Thursday if he's the Bala bris, if he's the father or the Sandik. The Ramah says then you're mechuyev to fast on Friday, because really Friday is the fast. We just push it back to Thursday. So it'll come out if you make a fast, if you make a siyum on Thursday, you're potter from your Tainus B'chayrim, but then you have to fast again on Friday. Therefore, my shul we're making two siyumim, one on Thursday and one on Friday, because in order to catch it, to do both of them, I'm not saying the B'chayr has to make the siyum on both times. You get other people to make the siyum, but that would be that's a chumrah. That would be. We also know everything that you have to take care. You have to burn the zroya and burn the beya before Shabbos, because you can't burn it on Shabbos. Shabbos you're not allowed to cook, so you have to prepare the zroya on regular yontif. You're allowed to do it on yontif. If you do it on yontif, you have to. Mishnah Berurah says you have to eat from the zroya on yontif, or your intent has to be to eat from the zroya on yontif. But tomorrow, when it comes Friday, you have to make sure to make it on Friday. Also, my recommendation. Now there's a big problem. You can't eat matzah on Erev Pesach. Many have a minhag you don't eat matzah from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, but if at least you don't eat matzah from Erev Pesach as a din in Yerushalmi. Kol ha'ochel matzah be'erev Pesach kiskilu bol arusosai bebeis chamav. So you're not allowed to eat matzah. So therefore we can't eat matzah. So we have to eat chametz. Now some people eat matzah ashira. The reason they eat matzah ashira is because the only matzah you're not allowed to eat Erev Pesach is matzah that you could be Yetzi Mitzvah with. Since matzah ashira you can't be Yetzi Mitzvah with. Egg matzah, so you can't, but we don't like to eat egg matzah because, first of all, b'di'evet, in certain situations you could be Yetzi Mitzvah with egg matzah. Second of all, they don't make the egg matzah perfect. Some of them put in water in the egg matzah, even though I saw in Goldberg's and other places they have pure, says they have pure egg matzah. But it's better not to, I'm not recommending egg matzah or not. And also egg matzah, you have to be careful, shouldn't get mixed up, and then you'll use it on Pesach. The minhag Ashkenazim is we do not eat egg matzah on Pesach. So it's not recommended to have egg matzah. So the way to do it is you prepare very small, just a kabeya of challah for each person. I heard they're making the bakeries bite-sized bilkala, and you get a bite-sized bilkala for at night and a bite-sized bilkala for the morning, and that's what you should give each person, not to depend on having at 10 o'clock, 10:30, 10:32, or 10:56, depending which zman you hold, to stop eating the chametz and then getting rid of the chametz. It's very hard to get rid of the chametz. You put it in the toilet, you'll have a backup, and then you'll have to take it out to other pit, take it outside. It's not kedai. I think it's kedai to buy a small piece these small pieces, and that's eaten. The rest, you eat Pesach dik. And even if you eat it outside on a porch, or a thing, I saw writes, you could be saimach to eat it outside and go back into the house, because that's the derech achila for Erev Pesach, and you're allowed to do it that way. The question is, what do you do with shalosh shudas? You know there's a mitzvah to eat shalosh shudas. Now shalosh shudas you have to eat after mincha. Once it comes after 10:32 or 10:56, you're not allowed to eat chametz anymore. So how are you going to be Makayim mitzvah shalosh shudas? So there's 3 days brought in Shulchan Aruch what to do with shalosh shudas. One day is you split the suda in half. When you wake up in the morning, you go to daven, you come home, you eat 1 kebay of challah, maybe you take a little something with it, you bench, you get up, you go outside for 15, 20, 25 minutes, come back, you wash again before 10:32 or 10:56, and then you wash again, you makayim shalosh shudas. That's one day that's brought in the Shulchan Aruch, which is the Shittas HaTosfos, B'Shem HaBahag, in Masechtas Shabbos, Tav Kuf Yud Ches Amud Aleph. However, the other Shittas hold that you should eat a small, shalosh shudas has to be at mincha time. You can't be it's a shalosh shudas in the morning. So what's the difference? You're splitting the meal. So you do the shalosh shudas in the afternoon, but you can't eat challah and you can't eat matzah. So what do you do before, like right after 1 o'clock in the afternoon? So you say you take some peiros, or you take some Pesach cake, or you take something else, and then you makayim with that shalosh shudas, and that's how you makayim shalosh shudas. The ones who ate matzah shira would eat matzah shira also at around 1 o'clock, but you have to be careful not to eat it later than 3:30 or 4 o'clock, because then you have an isser of arvei psachim samach lemincha le'echel. So therefore you have to do it. And the third way is really the easiest way. Oh, right, if you eat gebrocks, the Mishnah Berurah brings that you could eat a knedel. I gotta believe that there's shittas in the Achrayim who hold you shouldn't do it, because there's matzah in there. So since there's matzah in there, it has to be really cooked. If it would just be fried or different things, it would be called that you'd be eating the matzah. So I don't think it's recommended to eat gebrocks. Anyway, we don't eat gebrocks. So it would be if you eat gebrocks, if you make a real knedel that it's cooked and it cooks out the matzah, then maybe you could do it. And the third way, which possibly the fourth way is the easiest way, which I think is Shittas Rashi, and it's the sheet of many Hasidim, that there is no shalosh shudas on this Shabbos. This Shabbos at Hakona, Nishkin shalosh shudas. Now this, and it's brought in the Zohar HaKodesh, Shem Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, that this is the Shabbos. He would talk Divrei Torah, b'makom shalosh shudas would be over here by this Shabbos, because this Shabbos is the time that you can't eat shalosh shudas. And therefore, I heard Jaskala this week. Someone told me that the reason that Chazal made the sudas 3 sudas, really a person could eat 2 sudas a day. Why do you eat 3 sudas? Eat an extra suda on Shabbos. So that makes it that you don't have to eat so much by each suda. So the Avodram says, so that way you'll like one of the eitzes, the advice given for diets is split up your meals. That way you won't eat so much at each meal. So you'll have more time to talk Divrei Torah at each meal. That's what David Ram says. If you have to rush and eat, you won't give up. You won't complete over here where you are going to eat 2 meals and not have a third meal. That's why we have to make it up by shalosh shudas and talk Divrei Torah. The other thing that you have to remember, I just said you have to say Kol Chamira right after you finish that, either the second meal or 1 meal in the morning. You say Kol Chamira. The night of B'dikas Chametz, the night of the Biur Chametz that we do on Friday, you're allowed to eat Chametz after, but you don't have to say Kol Chamira. The Kol Chamira, you leave over for that thing. I just want to say, I picked up an old Haggadah once. It's one of the Venetian Haggadahs. And by Kiddush, in the Haggadah, they have a picture of a soldier, or like it looks like from dressed in a uniform with a rifle, with a musket, and he's running after a little rabbit. And that's what's the picture, running across the Kiddush. It's a beautiful artwork. What in the world does that have to do with Kiddush? What does a little rabbit running away from a guy holding a musket have to do with it?
Going after that Easter bone.
I think, Isha Hamda maybe. Well, not everybody here talks Yiddish the way they used to talk it. In Wien and other places, that when you're rushing after something in Yiddish, it's called you're yoking. Yoked. He's running after it. And a yukzut, a yoked, a yakt. A yakt. And what do you call a rabbit in a thing? A hose. A rabbit is a hose. So a yakta hose. Yakna hose. Was exactly the thing. You picked up the Haggadah, and suddenly you'd see a picture of a soldier running after a rabbit. So hopefully you say, what in the world is a soldier? What's yakta the hose? You remind yourself you gotta say yakna hose. And that will be that thing, you'll say yakna hose. This is the real shot. And therefore that's why they would yak the hose, and they would say yakna hose. And therefore, remember, why is it so important in the Haggadah? If you forgot to say Havdalah. Let's say you came home and you said regular Kiddush, this Motzei Shabbos, and you didn't say the Yakna Az. What's the halacha? Some say you're supposed to right away make Havdalah on another kais. Some say you're supposed to say Havdalah on the second kais. And some say you should say Havdalah after the Haggadah on the fifth kais. It's a major machlekes, which I can't go into now all the time to start it. So you know what's the best eitzah? Don't forget. So if you don't forget, that's why they went so far by making a picture of him yucking the hose to make sure that he should not be, should not get into this Indian. So Al Kapanim, all of us together, should be Zeicha Bez Hashem, with the Gevaldik, Yislahavis, Ma'aminim, B'nai Ma'aminim. We all believe, Chayivadim, Liris Satzmai. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe you have the kaiches to do it. We have to believe that we could be the link in the chain. We could be the ikfus of the Mashiach. That'll be Laila Kiyoim Yoyer. It'll be so clear. The clarity will be that we'll be able to see the Sipri Tzis Mitzrayim, to be able to see the Yad of HaKadosh Baruch and everything we do in our lives. Shukayah for listening. Shukayah for coming.